I'd like to call the meeting to order. First order of business, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. McNamara, any considerations of changes, additions, or removals?
We just, if we can add under 13, we'll call it 13A, it's just a minor administrative change to the town's emergency management plan that I will make you aware of when we get there. So we can note that as update to town emergency management plan.
Okay.
It's 13, didn't you?
That's what I thought you said.
Excuse me, sir, you said 13, you're,
You can just, like I said, we can add it after 13.
oh, after 13.
Yeah, 13A, that's fine.
So we got 13
Whatever is your pleasure. Is this more of an administrative note?
Okay. We'll be looking to approve the minutes of the previous meeting dated October 2nd, 2023.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from October 2nd, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Ayes have it. I'd like to open up the floor to comments from citizens. Mr. Silvestri.
I just made some observations, mostly surrounding just the staffing at the town hall. We're talking about so many large-scale projects moving forward, really restructuring, rebuilding the town government. There are a few positions in the town hall that I feel we're lacking or could use to really help these projects actually come to fruition. One being a planner, one economic coordinator, finance coordinator, and potentially even an assistant town manager. These are three positions that don't need three people. They could be shared with the right applicant. I've seen a lot of towns do that, where they either merge planning and economic development or assistant town manager and finance economic development. But just the amount of grants that are out there, and Brendan is, in my opinion, doing an outstanding job. There's just not enough time on that. And those are very engrossing to write those grants, research them, follow up on them. Gordon Black, economic development coordinator in Manchester, he goes up to Montpelier, wines and dines. I mean, it's a lot to that, and I think the town could benefit greatly from at least considering adding those positions in one way or the other.
Thank you. Thank you. Expanding on that point, Mr. McNamara, who is in charge of securing or at least applying for grants on our behalf?
It's done through the municipal office. I guess I would say it was kind of a group effort. If I spearhead it, if one's brought to me, if I'm aware of one, it starts there, and then I work with the appropriate parties.
Is your mic working?
I would like to think so, but maybe it's not.
It is.
I can talk loud. It is. Maybe you gotta speak into them for it to work. So I usually spearhead the grant applications and work with the appropriate parties as depending on obviously what information is needed.
And regional planning.
Regional planning assists with that as needed. Yep.
I think that economic advisor would be a good idea to move forward. I don't know if we have room in the budget for it, but it's always something to explore. And as far as a planner, you're speaking of a town planner or a city planner for infrastructure purposes and layouts. Something else to think about. Thank you. Great. Mr. Winter.
Are you guys planning on discussing the completion of some repairs on the retaining ponds, lakes?
Yeah, I'll update that.
That is agenda 5.
Sure.
Well, I hear what you have.
Okay, sure.
Any other comments from citizens? Lish, do you have his name?
George Goulby,
Thank you.
Key Property Court. I'm still here. The conversation I had with Mr. McNamara subsequent to our last meeting, he informed me that the select board's position is that you have ownership rights of an easement across my property by virtue of years of management. That is an implausible argument. It's the equivalent of saying that if I mow your lawn, because my property surrounds it, and if I do that for a number of years, I own it. To acquire title by adverse possession, you need a claim of right. There is no claim. You have no right. You're trespassing and you're attempting to steal my land. We are in a small town, so there are no secrets. And I have been informed that the select board's opinion is that I won't be here. I'm here, I'll be here. If I'm not here, I'll still be able to dedicate 100% of my time to litigating. The difference between bad faith and good faith is having a plausible argument to justify your position. Maintenance of a path across my front yard doesn't create any right, even for a private individual who doesn't have a constitutional prohibition against taking, like the state of Vermont has and the United States Constitution has vis-a-vis this government. If we litigate and bad faith is found, the liability won't be just taxpayer money that you flushing down the toilet on a lawyer who's going to lose, but the liability for bad faith is personal. So, my plan is that cameras are going up, the no trespassing signs are going up, and then the barricades will go up. At which point it'll be the town that needs a court order, not me. I have a deed. You don't have a scrap of paper. You can't even prove that the asphalt that went down was paid for. You have no evidence except a declaration that my property is a road. That is bad faith. And I am here accusing this board and the members who are militating for this of acting in bad faith in clear violation of the law.
Thank you, Mr. Goldie. Mr. McNamara, it's my understanding that the town's attorney has been involved in this,
Correct.
so we'll keep going in that avenue.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Any other comments from citizens? All right, hearing none, we're going to move over to liquor license actions.
So you have two liquor licenses that were in your packet. One is a first-class restaurant and bar license this one is for Terra Italian Steakhouse. There's also a third-class restaurant and bar license and an outside consumption permit. The second one is a first-class restaurant and bar license for Depot Street Mafia and Catering Group. There's also a third-class restaurant and bar license.
Do we want to act on these separately or
You
together?
can have them separately.
Would we like to do these separately?
Sure.
Board? Okay. First up is Depot Street Mafia and Catering Corp., AKA Game Bird. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve for the first and the second class, first and third class.
All right. Mr. Bates, you second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. On to Terra Italian Steakhouse, LLC. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the first class, third class, and the outside consumption permit.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. FEMA flood recovery update.
So just a quick update, and I'll cover some of what Kevin was asking about here. For our FEMA standing here, obviously, we're still working on plans for the wastewater plant, just in the grand scheme of things. That plant now is currently running at 100% capacity. So that is a positive. But obviously, the repairs to that plant, and the big piece of that is the flood mitigation, what we need to do to attempt to prevent something like that, if at all possible, from happening again, up into considering relocation of the plant. I'll be honest, it's what's called a alternative project program. Trust me, the idea of moving that plant is probably in another stratosphere, but we consider those options in an attempt to capture all the funds that we can to rebuild it the best we can. Sometimes, ideally, if we could pick it up and move it somewhere else, fantastic. That being where it is, it would be a monumental feat. So that's the big piece. Our damage inventory for the town, and kind of the village as well, but the town primarily, was completed. What that means is that all projects and damage that we had accounted for in the town has been submitted to FEMA. We'll now begin to put together projects that will then begin to get reimbursed for. Obviously, there's another side to this because, even though we're 6-7 months out from this, we are finding things even today. For example, I'll use Plumley Ave as an example. We have a fix there that is with the water line, the sewer line, and we're about to dig up pavement that we just put down 2.5 weeks ago because of something that was unforeseen. So these are projects that will then get added back into FEMA. So we have to do our due diligence to account for these, because obviously we may still find things next spring that need to be accounted for. Regarding the site dams, as Kevin alluded to, we have the 2 site dams currently that I applied for the emergency watershed program in accordance with FEMA, and that's for Site 3 and Site 5 for the damage to the spillways. These projects are basically a 75-25 share cost-wise. For Site 3, the total estimated construction cost is $46,000. And that'd be a sponsor for us for about $11,000, which is not too bad. For Site 5, it's $519,000 for the entire cost of the program, which leaves us on the hook for about $130,000. We are exploring what to do, and obviously right now, we're in the process of just lining those repairs up. They have to go out to bid. These were just sent to us from the state Friday. So now that process lines up to get those repairs expedited and expedited here as soon as we can. The likelihood is I don't think Site 5 will be completed this winter because the time won't just, for a federal bid won't allow us. But looking at having those done in the spring, I think is going to be our top priority, because Site 5, the damage to the spillway was significant. So we'll have to mobilize to get in there. The other big scale on the projects, I think I mentioned at our last meeting, is moving forward to repair all the dams and bring them back up to code. That's a 10-year project. The engineering alone takes 2 years, but that process has started. And I can say that I sat down with the 2 gentlemen from Department of Natural Resources and the Vermont Dam Program, and with the exception of the spillways that had damaged, the dams are in they're all in satisfactory condition, satisfactory to fair. So that was kind of a relief to hear a little bit. So the bigger project has started, but the repairs to the spillway are approved and moving forward. It's just going to be the bids and funding.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I think it was 2 meetings ago, I understood there was going to be a Band-Aid done on the spillways that was going to be complete by the end of October.
That's what we thought this was. It was with the emergency managed watershed program.
And now when is the schedule?
Well, hopefully for one of them, probably this fall. For the bigger one, it will probably be the spring.
Should I wait or may I?
No, please. Yes, microphone, please.
I believe you guys would agree that your primary responsibility is to protect the citizens of Ludlow and their property.
Yeah, it's a main tenant. Yeah, sure.
Okay, everything else is superfluous.
Absolutely.
We lost General Electric years ago. One of the main reasons was because of the flood. That was devastating to the town. I'm not sure whether Shaw's is going to be here in time for the ski season, but that's not going to help the ski mountain, which, if we keep having floods, which we've had 200-year floods in the last 12 years, because FEMA's helped me rebuild my property twice. That's not going to help. If we have a dam split and we wipe out citizens or houses, business is really going to go right down the tubes. I like Ludlow, I love Ludlow, but if we have something like that happen, all the rest of the stuff you guys are working on is a waste of time, because people will not move in here. Properties will drop to the rock bottom because there's nothing else, and we're going to be in trouble. So I understand timing, I understand projects, I've done them for all years for numbers of large corporations, but we got to get some priority on this so that we don't have a catastrophe because the spillways can't handle it and then break through like we saw this last time. It's got to be number one priority, because in the spring, if we have an excess of water due to runoff or heat all of a sudden, and we have another flood, we're going to be looking at huge problems. I know you guys are trying. I'm not beefing about it. I'm just trying to raise the level of priority, because all the other stuff that you're working on is insignificant compared to the safety of our property. And it doesn't have to be the whole town. If we just lose a few houses, the newspapers will be flooded with floods. And our property values will go right down through. Thanks for listening to me. I don't mean to be melodramatic, but we can't have the projects just keep moving out. I have seen so much rock come out of the top line past my area, because there's so many people who were shoring up properties that were damaged this last flood. If you got a retaining pool that has less volume than it needs, it doesn't work. That's what a retaining pool does, is it captures the excess water to a point that you have a little spillway. If it's filled up, it goes right over the spillway and it's ineffective. So at a minimum, maybe we can be digging out those ponds, reservoirs, or whatever, so that we've got more volume, even if we can't repair the spillways. There's got to be some basic effort that can be done so that next spring, we're not sitting here with our thumbs in our pockets.
Thank you for your comment. I will get to other questions in just a moment, but I do want to touch on what Mr. Winter just said. There is no doubt that this town manager has put priority on the flood and the resiliency of the future. I will personally attest to that. This select board is doing everything it can to do it, but we are a small community with a small number of folks, so we need state help and we need federal help. Trying to get those people corralled into here has proven to be a bit of a challenge, but we are making progress.
Thank you.
Nothing is lost on me, especially because I own businesses right on downtown Ludlow that were flood affected. The fact of the matter is we're working really as hard as we can, but we can't stop everything. The town can't come to a grinding halt and then allocate all the resources, because then other things would start to suffer.
I agree.
So we're trying to walk the tight balance. I promise you as an individual, I'm trying to do everything I can, and I know that gentleman is as well. And I don't want to be caught flat-footed. I definitely don't want to do that, but we do have to mind our steps because this is crazy times. Thank you for sharing. Ms. Baldwin.
I feel like my blood pressure went up just listening to the story about the delay on the spillway. I live right under the dam, you guys know, up on 1 south. What's the plan if between now and the spring we get another massive rain on top of the snow and the ice, and the spillway starts to break up more. What's the plan?
So I will say that and I don't want to put words in their mouths, that when I met with the gentleman from Bob Thomas, who's from the USDA and part of the dam program, they put these out because that's part of the repair process. So we work with them. They do the oversight, they do the review, they do the inspection. And obviously I asked them point blank, I said, how concerned even with this damage should we be? And their response is, it needs to be fixed. Would I be pushing the panic button right now? No. But again, that does nothing for you standing here. I understand that. So
if there's another massive storm this winter, what's her plan? Do you have a plan that will, those of us up there on that road are going to know about what I need to know? I
think that's something that we talk with our emergency management plan. We have a meeting coming up about it, but I will circle back with the USDA and talk to them about this. Is there something we can do to be even more proactive than we're being right now? I can tell you that, we're proactively working on these things, and I've talked investigating smaller repairs that may help, but I don't want to, spend an enormous amount of time, an enormous amount of money for something that really might not make a difference for a fix there. We could spend a tremendous amount of time and really what we're doing is minimal. So that's kind of where we are. Again, we got these numbers. The 46,000 for Site 3 that's palatable. $500,000 for a spillway repair, although it will be done, is a tough one to swallow. But I'll get you an answer by this week.
Yeah. Another question. What kind of progress is being made specifically on getting the funding to start repairing the dam? I know you have talked to me about different.
Yeah, so that's again, for the large repairs, that's a 10-year project, basically 2 dams a year, every 2 years. We are looking at some other options for funding options that the select board will have to look at, budgeting as well, but again, the budgeting piece only takes a small portion of that. So we have a couple different options on the table. It's just kind of looking at what's going to be the best benefit for the town.
Showing my ignorance, which is probably great, we got a lot of wonderful people who move a lot of dirt. Is it possible that we can remove some of the debris in the retaining ponds to increase the volume that they can handle? I mean, you guys did some amazing work where it was eroded out. Is it feasible that we can do it?
Probably as a municipality, no. We don't have the equipment to do that type of a job. To make the dent in one of those dams that we would need to make, we don't have the capability of doing that.
There may be a way to open up the dams and
we have,
occasionally keep the water level down.
Deeper, so there's, that's all I'm thinking.
And we have, to Lynn's point about notification, we have been working on closely monitoring the dam levels. We're working on securing some of the devices that monitor the levels of the dam, and have the water and wastewater department have worked on, trying to keep those levels and keep a very close eye on the levels. So in tying that in with myself, and to your point, the forecast, if we know in next week we're going to get potentially 4 inches of rain, maybe we can go up and drop the levels a little bit over a prolonged period of time. There are things like that of being proactive that can go a long way.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Alden, I believe, raised his hand just slightly first. Mr. Heitzsmith.
The Army Corps of Engineers built these dams, and then they they walk away? Do they not own them anymore? We own them. So why don't we try to give them back to them? They fixed up New Orleans. New Orleans was pretty good after Katrina, and they did it pretty quickly.
Thank you. Mr. Alden.
Eric Alden, Trust Center. My comment was more about notification, as the folks were concerned about. A few months back, I don't recall it, but we talked about a notification system in case of emergency. So I'm wondering if did anything happen with that? And if not, maybe we like the old school way with the horns on the top of the town hall there. But we did talk about having some sort of notification system. And if I recall, I was going to read that immediately. So I'm just curious what that is.
Mr. McNamara.
I'll touch on that in the next one, if I
Okay.
can.
One question that I had for you, Mr. McNamara, was FEMA's supposed to be reimbursing us 75% of the cost of rebuilding, with the state picking up another 12 or 12.5%. What are the guidelines for that, and are they being met? Have we received some reimbursements?
We have not yet. That's why with as I mentioned, this damage inventory is what is submitted to FEMA through grants portal. Every damage is put in. Then we work with our project it's a PMDG. So project manager, essentially, who's assigned to us by FEMA. They work to put together, okay, every little piece of it, all the work that was done on Gia Farm Road goes here. And then you go through everything else and you say, here are the trucks that you use, here's the fill that was used, here's the excavator. So everything that's lumped into one project. There are certain guidelines that need to be met for that, and we've met them. We meet them. That's a big part of the difficult part of it, for sure. So we should hopefully we'll start seeing some reimbursement, but at this point the windows are long, and with these events they tend to get extended. So it prolongs. This will be a year or two project for sure.
May I ask one more thing? I know that the town and village have both adopted the NFIP, and I've heard a few folks that are a little concerned about the information or the lack of information, and it would be nice if we could get a state official down here, maybe a flood mitigation specialist, to come and host a meeting to explain it for folks who might be a little lost on the process.
I will go ahead and let me see what I can do to set it up.
Thank you. Anything else on the item 5?
No, sir.
All right.
Oh, you have a question?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Silvestri.
Add one thing or ask a quick question, it's semi-related. So we're talking about, costs, revenue streams. Haven't brought this up in a while, but has the board considered the option tax? And is there a plan to get it on the ballot for upcoming town meeting?
I believe that to be a great question. There has been no chatter of a local options tax except for maybe, when was that? June? We were presented.
Pre-flood.
Yeah, pre-flood there was some discussion about it. I haven't seen anything in the last few months, obviously. But we're going to, we're going to float that idea, I would imagine, in future meetings once we kind of rebound a little bit.
I think a big part of that is educating the public. So, that takes time. So that is an actual want on the board for March. Let's follow suit with that.
Thank you. Okay. Number 6, consider appointment of Mr. Dave Van Gilder as the Assistant Emergency Management Director.
So this kind of ties into both of them and to Mr. Alden's question. I'd ask that the board appoint Dave Van Gilder as the Assistant Emergency Management Director to work side by side with Angela Kissel. Dave, I believe, had served in this capacity before and has, asked to lend his services to us. I think he's be a great aspect, an asset to us. He has, he worked great with Angela, and what happened when we had this flood, it kind of showed that there were two sides to these emergencies. There's one that is someone, and Angela did a great job managing the disaster, but you become separated from needing to handle the phone calls from the state and the feds and the state and the feds, and trying to make sure that information is getting out there. And then there's the other side that needs to have to be basically boots on the ground type thing. Dave did that very well as well. He was a face at the community center, and he was instrumental. Not to mention he's a dispatcher here, celebrated 30 years yesterday. So that knowledge and information, I think putting them together as a team will be tremendous for us. To follow up to Eric's point, so the Textile, David and I have been working with the Textile notification system. Part of our requirements for selecting one is we need to have 3 bids from 3 different providers. Our next meeting for the 3rd bid is tomorrow. So this is with Civic Plus. We'll make that decision. We'll make a recommendation. We have 2 very good options that I think will be tremendous assets. One is used by the federal government, but we'll present it to the board. We've gone through multiple Zoom meetings with this. I think it will tie in to use with ourselves, with Okemo if they so choose, but the notification process and how it would reach people not only in an emergency situation, but to something as simple as, don't forget to vote tonight. I think it will be a tool that could be really used. So I would anticipate that being ready to go for the next board meeting to make a decision, and then we'd launch that. So we have our final one. It's been a little tricky trying to get 3 of them on board due to some scheduling conflicts, but that is just about done. So I would just ask that we, if you need to make a motion, we do that for David.
Mr. Alden.
Thank you. Thank you, Brendan. Before the floods, probably back in the spring, at the end of the winter, I had some questions about the emergency management team and the processes, and I did some looking into it, and I have some concerns that we had pre-flood. There wasn't any interagency communication or training or drills. And I spoke to both the police chief and the fire chief, and I asked them both what the process was, and they said they're not aware of any real process. I'm sure the flood taught us a lot of lessons. I'd like to get those lessons in some sort of format so that there can be drills for mass casualties, mass fire, drills ahead of time so that we're not trying to figure out the process. We're not trying to have or fire, casualty. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. McNamara, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that standard operating procedures are being at least written in a body of paper or digitally that will then be kind of passed around and met upon.
Yeah, and I think, Eric's correct that, one thing we learned from this situation was that, from 30,000 feet, we looked fantastic. And we did extremely well, but there are things that I guess you call them learning experiences that you learned. We could have done this, we should have done this, and they're little things. Thankfully enough, we handled things and we adapted, but now we're starting to meet as not only an emergency management team, but just departments, having department head meetings, because it may not be something that is as big as a flood event, but it could be something as small as a power outage or a car accident that we need to adapt to. And we're not going to activate our EMD, but our department heads need to be in communication with each other. So that's something I've been working on as a piece since I started to try and get our department heads to, that's the base, and then you move from there. So we are the, SOGs and SOPs are in place, and we're tweaking them little by little.
That's great. Okay, so we're looking for a motion for Mr. Van Gelder as Assistant Emergency Management Director.
Motion.
Second.
So moved, as you said it.
Oh, any discussion?
I
All
think
those in
it'll be a
favor?
great- Aye.
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 Ayes have it. Agenda item 7, review or approve resolution for the municipal planning grant.
This is just an amended resolution that you have for the municipal planning grant for the MARC, which is the Manascutney Regional Commission, to do and conduct a housing study and analysis and institute an action plan for the town and the village. Our portion of the grant amounts to just over $1,100.
I'm sorry, I could not hear the amount.
$1,100 is the town share.
What does this need to be completed by?
This will be completed by, I believe it is August of 2024.
Was that 2020?
2024.
2024. Okay.
I'm sorry, I really can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm trying. They're not.
Yeah, does anybody else
Hello?
have trouble hearing him?
Dustin's on. Oh. It's on. Can hear it. Speak into it. Okay.
So you just want a motion to approve?
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Second.
For the municipal planning grant. Do you need us to sign that
That
copy
one,
tonight?
please. That one, please.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Agenda item number 8, consider and possibly approve Side Hill Cronchers Snowmobile Club request to use town roads.
You have the request that was in your packet. I did speak about it with Ron. Ron Tarbo had no questions, was fine with it, so I will leave any questions to the board.
And John, this hasn't changed for the last 10 years, except you do have one add-on this year.
That's correct. What we added was, because we made a trail down in Calcuttas, we've added approximately, but it's only basically a crossing right at the bottom, so that we can go across and get gas.
Yep.
At this time, he has the gas in the area. The nearest gas is supermarket. And,
Right.
So, Fox Lane, and we'll be able to use Calcuttas for restaurant, because most of the other restaurants, we used to come down, go to the timber end, and be able to access there. And, I'm actually using Sam's and Subway, and everybody had a very good rounded variety of places. If somebody just wanted a sandwich, they could run in the Subway. If they wanted a burger, they could run at Darcy's. If they wanted pizza, they could go to Target over at Subway and walk across the street to the village.
Right.
I'm not sure if Village Pizza's ours, and so a lot of times that's a place for gas and something to eat. So.
As a much-needed addition to your list. Yeah.
For those that are listening on Skype, the only new road was Fox Lane that was added. Do we have a motion?
A motion to present it as read.
Any discussion?
Who seconded it?
Bob?
Mr. Brandt? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Hopefully we have a good season. Agenda item number 9, review, approve Mascoma Bank note for flood expenses in the amount of $2 million.
So, thank you. This is a note from Mascoma Bank for the principal of $2 million to help cover flood expenses that we are incurring. Ula and I met with the members of Mascoma Bank, and they were basically one of the only ones that responded to us. Came down, met, were more than willing to help us out. The interest rate is 4.7%. So this will again help to defer some of the costs for our flood expenses that we've paid to date.
How many years?
I'll just have to look right here. Maturity date, 1 year.
1 year, okay. Do we expect that we can make?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have that document handy?
I do.
Can I look at it?
Sure.
Thank you.
We just received that today from the bank.
I don't see the monthly payment amount.
I think we were gonna pay a lump sum once we were matured.
You're not going to pay the monthly,
No.
you're going to pay $2
Yeah.
million plus 4.7% on that lump
Yeah.
all at once? Okay.
Make a motion that we approve the note as reviewed.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, the ayes have it. Agenda item 10, consider proceeding with FEMA buyout process for the following properties. Mr. McNamara, would you like to split these off individually?
We can. This is, we can go one by one if you'd like.
I would.
Yep. Let's start with section A, which is 21 Route 103.
21 Route 103, and I just be clear that these are proposed FEMA buyouts that the owners of the property have requested that the select board continue the process to move forward with the buyout process for these properties. That would be working with the state and FEMA, obviously. So 21 Route 103, that is the property that is currently located, the Subway building.
You need a motion to move
I
forward?
do for each one. Yep.
That was Subway, you said?
Subway
Yes.
building, yes.
Do we have a motion?
We have a motion, I have a motion to move forward with the process.
I have some discussion. In 21 Vermont Route 103, that address, was that affected during Irene?
I believe so, yes.
Were there any resiliency measures taken at that point?
I can't speak to that for sure. I know that those properties, each of these individuals have met and spoken with the project directors for FEMA and have given them the okay to proceed with the projects. So if they were, I'm guessing that before, if there was damage during Irene and that's part of the project, they have to meet certain guidelines, but I can't speak for sure.
The flood was a terrible thing to happen, and we are in a valley surrounded by mountains with a river running through the middle of our town. So we understand the consequence of that. I am a little apprehensive about approving FEMA buyouts for multiple properties, due in large part because Ludlow is already surrounded by a lot of undevelopable land, and this would increase that. No permanent structures can ever be placed on that. Comes out of the grand list, and it's undevelopable in perpetuity. So I believe that would be something that we should all think about before we move forward on multiple properties.
I agree that it's something that ideally you do not want to happen. I'm just posing the question. I don't know how or what method we would deny them. I know we can, but those would be conversations that we would probably need to, or myself would need to have with the owners. Obviously, these are something that they want to happen because, this is happening multiple times. And obviously, we know that this is right down Main Street, 103, and also, 106, I followed up with FEMA because 106 Main Street, which was the location of Mojo's, is a historic building and it's on the registry. That does not prohibit a FEMA buyout, but it also does not make me feel warm and fuzzy to knock down a historic building. Which is essentially what would happen. So I do understand, and I echo that there's concern with the buyout, but I'm not familiar with the best way to proceed with denying these. I guess would be my concern for the board.
And I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting we deny anybody. Sure. I just want the townspeople to understand what comes with a FEMA buyout. I hope everybody understands that is generally what will happen, and there's obviously other guidelines and restrictions in place as well.
But this is just the start of the process, correct?
Correct.
Is being signed.
This is continuing the process.
Yeah.
Mr. Schmidt.
No, Schmidt, I think Justin has a really good point. There's other buildings that should have been affected more with the flooding, like Subway, Sam's, Darcy's, Brookhaven did all right because it was built in a certain way, and maybe those are locations for housing on stilts or something like that. And putting the town in a place where that land is undevelopable in the future could be pretty limiting. And I think the Mojo building is one where a bunch of damage all around there, but it that's the only one that's applying. Historic building seems like there's something that could be replaced, and maybe there's a way to work with the property owners to find another solution that doesn't involve limiting development in those areas.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're taking these one at a time, and we're just, this is just a process to move forward. And you can attest my Glenn, it's going to take years.
Yes. It's definitely not an overnight process. Mr. Schmidt.
You obviously already have one that you have approved right next door down there. So you can't, kind of hard pressed to stop that. I guess I would ask, the select board, potentially you might want a table to get a feel for what you can do, because the town could buy it itself. If you wanted to buy the property and then do something with it to go, keep the property developable. What would it take? But you're talking a 30-day wait. I agree with Scott, it's just the first step, but it is an important step because you're agreeing to take it off the tax roll and keep the process moving along. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I want to figure out, does the town want to buy some of this stuff and deal with it themselves or something? Maybe get a little more, advice or information, just a thought.
I agree with that. Thank you. The one thing that I don't want to do as a board is kick the can, keep kicking the can. So I think that a moratorium on this would be a salient way to go about it. We do have motions on the table. So what's the feeling of the board?
Probably a council question about potential options.
Mr. Heidsmith.
Town of Ludlow would like to buy the timber in instead. The numbers are out there right now, being adjusted for a recent appraisal. But the alternative is light, uglies. I mean, if we're not able to sell the timber in through the buyout process, we don't have the funds to fix it up. Can't operate as a motel anymore, and that's the only thing that could operate there, at least not for what we could afford. So it's gonna look really bad. And some of these other buyouts that are on your agenda, these places are gonna look pretty bad if some action, isn't taken. So you don't want to kick the can down the road, but you're going to have brambles and nastiness and abandoned buildings and decrepitness, and you gotta act.
Thank you. Mr. Alden.
Thank you. I think there's a difference between some of the properties. With Glenn's property, it's a field in a field. So if we were to have a buyout, it would just be one big field. So it wouldn't look too bad. My biggest concern, I had a conversation with Brent today, is 106 Main Street. The Village of Ludlow is listed on the historic register. That is one of the buildings that is included on that register. Behind all that ugly yellow backboard, there is a beautiful building. That was a beautiful church at one point. I have no comments on the other ones. But 106 Main Street, I would hate to see that become a missing tooth in the village. I'd like to try to explore and include some other options for the owner for that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, did you have a question?
I just had a comment that I think it might be an idea to slow the process down for a month or your next meeting. Because one of the things in my mind that I would consider is, just for instance, the timber end or subway are, and possibly, and I don't know, I haven't looked at the map, a floodway where Mojo's is, or the old movie theater in my book, where I grew up, and that's where it was, is historic building, and it's right in the village, and right in amongst the business district, so to speak. So, I think Bruce had a good point. Nobody wants to kick the can down the road. I'm not very good at that, and I'd like to move on. But I think that you guys have got good reason to come up with a plan on what you want to approve, or what the voters and the people of the town of Ludlow would like to see approved, and then what makes sense and what makes sense to the person that is trying to sell the business. In some ways, certainly not a historic building, so.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Brandt.
So if we moved forward, that's just moving forward. That doesn't mean someone else couldn't buy the property, because it's going to take a while to happen.
Correct.
So I think we should move forward. That doesn't mean we can't. If someone wants to buy the building, that can't happen. It's not, if we move forward, it's not going to stop any other possible deals from happening. But it keeps things moving. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
I think realistically, like Glenn's property, the subway, and maybe the Sands, no one's gonna buy those properties because of where they sit. And if they were lost, yes, it would be a loss. But again, it's sort of outside of the village, and it's open area. So again, if timber end goes down, hate to see it go, it just becomes an extension of the two fields next to it. So it's not visually, it's okay. 106 Main Street is different. If you lose that building, and you lose a piece of history town, then it's gone. And then that's just a missing tooth forever. And that, out of all of them, that could be a building that maybe it would be purchased. I don't think anyone's gonna buy, the timber area or the subway building.
All right, so I
Thank you, Mr. Alden.
definitely have an issue with two of these. That's why I want to do them one at a time. So we're on the subway.
The Mr. Schmidt.
Which,
I guess the question, probably we should, I don't know, I always thought, does the town then retain the ownership of the property, the land, once that happens? And I don't believe I believe the town could then figure out what they might want to do with it after this whole process.
There are guidelines, obviously, of what you can do, but the town is basically purchasing the property from the owner with the funds from FEMA.
And this should, I think it should be really clear. This has nothing to do with Glenn's property. That's going and hopefully is done, more about what's the next step forward. Because I believe once you have made the decision that you're going to take it off, they're looking for the town to give their blessing, and then like, hey, I don't, probably ways you can slow it down or stop it, but you probably got one shot at it, I would think, so.
What exactly thank you, Mr. Schmidt, what exactly does tonight do if we move forward? As opposed, because we keep hearing, well, it's a long drawn out process, but if we give the initial okay, what happens?
That's basically kind of the continuation of, on the town's behalf, that we're going to proceed with this. Obviously, there's not chances along there where we can say, well, we're not interested, but this is continuing to basically start the whole process as well. The owners have gotten the okay that, yes, it is qualified. The town is now saying, we're interested in proceeding here.
We have a motion. So,
Subway.
as it pertains to 21 Route 103, Section A of Agenda Item 10, the motion is on the table to approve it. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
Yay. All those against? The yeas have it. Still under item Agenda 10, B, 31 Route 103.
That is the building that is occupied currently by Mr. Darcy's.
I have a motion.
So just as a comment, it was talked a lot about historic buildings. The brick portion of Mr. Darcy's is also a historic building, just on the record.
Just a point, he was at the DRB meeting a month ago asking for a permit for a deck. What, why the change of plans?
He basically feels that it would be more adequate for him to move forward with a FEMA buyout than to move forward with the repairs to the building.
Did he have any reasoning behind it?
Not that I was told.
I'll make a motion to not approve the property located at 31 Route 103.
Second.
Discussion? All those against?
Wait a minute. Going against would be going against your motion.
All those in favor of not approving 31 Route 103 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The nays? The ayes have it.
Were there any nays?
No.
No.
Section C of item agenda 10, 91 Route 103.
That is the building located, occupied currently by Sam's Steakhouse.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to accept that, move forward.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Section D, under agenda item 10, 106 Main Street.
Building occupied formerly by Mojo's.
I make a motion, we do not approve this.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of not approving 106 Main Street signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
I will go ahead and notify the owners of the decisions.
Thank you. Item agenda 11, rather. Consider possibly approve town Christmas holiday party.
So this is just a request. I believe this is how you've done it in the past for the select board to approve us to go forward with soliciting bids for the annual Christmas holiday party. We will put that out to bid. Obviously, I was speaking with the office, there's a couple of different options for that, whether that's catered or it's done at a local establishment, but we were going to look internally and then ask for bids that we will then bring to the board.
I have a question for you, Mr. McNamara.
Sure.
We have a town Christmas holiday party, and we also have a village holiday Christmas party.
I assume they're all done together. This is my
I saw it
I hope so.
Did you need a motion to approve that, or just?
Just a consensus, please.
Back. Double feature,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Agenda item 12, Divided Sky 5K run request.
This has become an annual event done by the Divided Sky Foundation, which will be held, the request is to be held on Saturday, May 18th, with a start time of 9 a.m. It will be the same route as last year, start and finish line at Jackson Gore Ice House parking lot. You have a copy of the perceived route. I believe there's only really one main crossing, which is at 103, which is generally staffed by volunteers and possibly the police department. I know Chief Billings is involved with this. This year, they are hoping to increase the number from 350 participants to 450.
That was a great event last year.
It sure was.
I thought that was well attended and a great time. I would make a motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Agenda item 13, consider garden club request to place Christmas holiday lights tree in Kesman Park, sorry.
Just exactly what it says. Request for that has been submitted by the Garden Club.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? I have one thing that I'd like to add, and this is just in regards to Kesman Park, not necessarily the Christmas or holiday lights. I noticed last winter that park wasn't kept free of snow and wasn't usable, so the line at the hatchery was around the corner and nobody had a place to sit and shoot the breeze or drink coffee. Is there a way that we can get that so it's cleared out during the winter months?
I can sure look into it. I don't think that's a problem. If there's an underlying reason as to why it was, I don't know, but I can definitely, if it is, it's all possible, it should be open. So I'll talk with them about it.
Got it.
Mr. Schmidt? Yes.
That was discussed, quite a few years ago, and it was determined that the maintenance of sand, salt, everything on that, it could be slippery, So it was talked about, and the tree actually went right in the middle, and it took up some of the space. But if you do that, there is the maintenance that goes along with that to make it so it is safe for everybody. So I think the feeling was, yeah, it can be done, it's gonna take some extra time, to do it, but then someone's gotta be monitoring it. And you get flash freezes and people are walking around in different types of shoes. So that was the idea behind it and why it never got shelved. It was just like, leave it, a picturesque hallmark, all white, type of thing, so.
Thank you. I think it's one of the main parks in our village, and it would be nice to have it usable. Obviously, we don't want to open ourselves up to lawsuits or anything like that if somebody falls and breaks their leg. So perhaps a sign out there warning people, and maybe, keeping due diligence is important as well.
I'll talk with Kevin McPherson. The staffing's a little different now, so I'll see what his feeling is on it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Agenda item 13A, which was an add-on, emergency management plan add-on.
So this is really just an action item that the board doesn't need to take action on, but I just wanted to make you aware because it was brought to our attention and the chairman is able to sign off on the emergency management plan. It's just a change for the administrator at the Gill Home, who is now Megan McElwain.
Repeat that.
The administrator at the Gill Home, Megan McElwain. I can... McElwain.
Thank you.
And they need that changed for their state regs. If they have an inspection, their protocols need to be up to date. So I will make that change, then I can have Brett sign it, just because it does affect again, it's not anything major, but I just wanted to be transparent about the change.
Thank you. Agenda item 14, other business. Hearing none, we'll move on to department head. Mr. Alden.
Just quickly, made me think of something with the park. A couple of years ago, I asked in one of the meetings, the town does a good job of clearing the sidewalks, but I asked at the meeting, who takes care of the fire hydrants? Oftentimes, those are buried. I'm wondering if we could start some sort of a program, adopt a hydrant or maybe have the businesses that are there, actually have the hydrant that's in front of their spot. Because oftentimes they are, after they plow the road and they plow the sidewalks, the hydrants are buried. And I know the fire department gets out eventually, but that shouldn't all be on them. They look like some sort of feel good, hey, adopt this hydrant,
clear it out, take care of the sidewalk in front of the shop, and just have it safe.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Agenda item 15, department head reports. Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none. Agenda item 16, municipal manager updates.
So just a few quick ones. I don't have much. You do have in front of you the comparisons for this year's health insurance, MVP and Blue Cross Blue Shield comparisons. It does look like MVP will be still the cheaper option, even though insurance rates for our coverage in town increased 12.7% this year, which is pretty staggering. But I know that our coverage is very much appreciated, what the board does for the employees here. I know that's it's a big perk. So it looks like MVP this year for the total is in the ballpark $944,604. This will be done, obviously, budget season. Budgets, I'll have emailed electronic copies to you all by this week. We're just trying to finalize the first rough drafts from the department heads. We're putting those in, so you'll have them. In regards to a few other things, we've talked about having a meeting specifically going towards short-term rentals. I'd like to try and shoot for that the last week of November, first week of December. Still trying to get someone from the Short-Term Rental Alliance to be able to come, so I'm just trying to nail down those dates. Regards to Shaw's, I know that that's been the hot topic in town. I have been working on trying to get an official press release from the Shaw's Public Relations, and I've been speaking with a couple of execs there. The response I got today was they are 100% devoted to rebuilding and reopening the building in town, and they are currently sourcing out products and plans. I asked for a return on a specific timeline, but have yet to get that. I'll share that with everyone once I have it.
I don't mean to throw them under the bus, but if they are truly dedicated to reopening and rebuilding, the building's not being worked on. It hasn't been being worked on for quite some time. So I appreciate that they got back to us, but I would very much appreciate if they gave us an exact date or an exact plan, given that we're already almost 5 months out.
That's what I am.
I'd settle for a ballpark.
That's, as would I.
I want an exact date.
As would I.
But that's, thank you for keeping on that.
The only other thing is you may be aware that Mount Holly Volunteer Rescue Service dissolved. So Mount Holly's Rescue Service dissolved effective the 1st of this month. So now Ludlow, we have begun covering Mount Holly with our ambulance service. Contracts are being put in place to cover that, but obviously the main goal here was to provide coverage for the time. This was kind of a sudden thing for Mount Holly, so we don't want to leave our neighbors hanging. So far, it seems to be working. We are doing a fair amount of mutual aid to Mount Holly, so we've adjusted the staff to do that, to meet those needs, so we won't see much of a hiccup here at all. Stephanie Grover's been out in the head of that and is doing a fantastic job. We've looked at some of the equipment in Mount Holly to see if it would be beneficial to us, but we are not there yet. But again, just so you know, a heads up, because you probably, as I've kept the board alert, but we're starting to respond more and more to Mount Holly as that the ambulance service of the rescue squad has dissolved.
Thank you for that update. Agenda item 17, set date for next meeting, December 4th. Looks good to me. Agenda item 18, possible items for next meeting, for year 2025 budget dates.
We'll just need to look at, in the next week or so, setting dates for individualized budget meetings.
Okay. Yep.
Should we start talking about that 1%?
Yes, that'll be on the next agenda. I'll put that on December.
Good.
Thanks for adding that. 19, sign warrant orders, which is already completed. Agenda item 20, possible executive session.
No need.
And 21, adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Thanks.